Howdy, boys and girls, and welcome back to Week 9 of your college football season, your 2014 college football season. And we're in one of the situations where we're not sure exactly what show this is because we took a couple weeks of vacation, right, Carla?
Yeah, actually, it's funny. We were within, about 100 miles of each other for a while there. I actually came home to Pennsylvania for a bit. Just didn't make it down to your neck of the woods, which I apologize. But
you were in Pennsylvania, and then I was in Baltimore. And so whatever it is, we've taken a couple of weeks off, but we're back with the Carla and Crappy Show for Week 9 of your college football season.
Because we couldn't miss this week.
No, we could not miss this week. For the second time in my life, I am going to State College, Pennsylvania, to Happy Valley. If you look behind the Ohio State bench, there's a decent chance that you're going to see me. Probably, I think it's like 20-ish yard line. I will be one of the Scarlet people sticking out in a sea of whiteout.
Yeah, nice.
It is such a cool atmosphere, and I think my friends are kind of upset with me, the ones who are taking me along, because at the beginning of the season, when we arranged this, it looked a lot more like Penn State would win this game. But we'll get to that. We will get to that. We're going to start with a different game to take our picks on Saturday in chronological order. We're going to start with the big one in the SEC. That is number 3 Ole Miss at number 24 LSU. Ole Miss is a 3.5-point favorite. Carla, what do you see here?
Ole Miss is a pretty legit team. Last time we had this conversation, we were trying to, we were doing our heads were picking Alabama and our hearts were picking Ole Miss. Well, it turned out our hearts were correct. And Ole Miss has itself a pretty darn good football team. LSU, we're still not sure what LSU is, and I hate the fact that we're still saying that this late into the season. But this is an LSU team that, quite frankly, had they not rattled off 2 wins against true SEC East opponents, they still haven't beaten anybody in the division. They haven't beaten an SEC West opponent yet. But without these 2 wins they've had the last couple weeks against Florida and Kentucky, I think you'd be seeing possibly Les Miles sitting firmly in the hot seat. I mean, they just got blown off the field by Auburn. Mm-hmm. And then lost to Mississippi State, which at the time felt like a bad loss. Now Mississippi State's the top-ranked team in the country. It's not such a bad loss. So LSU's got some confidence back after steamrolling Kentucky last weekend, and Kentucky is a good team. They're not necessarily nationally elite, but they've got some good wins on their resume.
They do.
And this was the first real test for them going down into Death Valley and dealing with that crowd, which they proved they didn't have the poise to do that. I mean, they got blown off the field by an LSU team that really hadn't done that to anybody all season. That's my concern about this game. This is a classic trap game for Ole Miss. Ole Miss has won all the games it's supposed to win. They live and die by Bo Wallace. Whether or not he has a good game or a bad game, that's, Ole Miss lives and dies by that, whether or not they're going to, roll over their opponent. And Ole Miss has Auburn next week. Mm-hmm. And they're going into Death Valley where, I'm sorry, the Tigers just don't lose at home. They don't. Especially as the lights start to turn on, and, because it's a 3:30 game, so by the time the second half rolls around, the stadium lights will be on. Les Miles doesn't lose at home at night in Death Valley. He doesn't. So that would be my concern. Ole Miss is the better team on paper and should win this football game. It's just whether or not they can hold it together. Bo Wallace has a good game, and they can handle the poise of what is arguably they say it's tougher than the whiteout in Happy Valley. I don't know. I would say those are going to be pretty equivalent this weekend, and I would lean Happy Valley because of the earlier start. But Ole Miss is going to have to keep it together this week to be able to pull off to keep rolling. I think they do, but I think this game is a little too close for comfort if you're a Rebels fan. Okay.
Looking at the home field advantage, and we know Wes, as you said, loves the taste of his home field. Especially when in a big game like this. I see 2 inconsistent quarterbacks, although Bo Wallace hasn't had the widely the huge swings that he had a year ago. And I see two very, very good defenses. What I kind of expect here, I'm going to be a little facetious, but only a little. I expect this to be a throwback of the SEC games of 5 years ago or 4 years ago when you and I complained about, oh my God, this is the dullest thing ever because no one scores.
Right.
I think just a nudge. I think a chance for the Tigers to kind of redeem a season that's been disappointing for them. Maybe the final score will be a little bit better than like 5-2, but I see something. I see an LSU win somewhere along those lines. What the hell we're going to say? LSU wins this game 5-2.
You're banking on two safeties, huh?
Yes.
That's
I see. That is exactly how I see this going. At 8 o'clock, a game that only Big Ten fans could love. That's not quite true.
No.
But this is in slightly different circumstances this year. Although things are kind of setting up in an interesting manner for the Buckeyes maybe. But as I mentioned before, Ohio State travels to Penn State. Ohio State is a 14.5-point favorite over the unranked Nittany Lions. Carla, what you got to say about your home state team?
Oh, do we have to talk about them really? No,
you can talk about Ohio State if you want. That's fine with me.
I hate to say that, but you're right. Earlier in the season, especially after the Ohio State loss to Virginia and Penn State is still winning football games, we're looking at this game on paper and saying this is going to be awesome.
Well,
unfortunately, it's going to be a good game. Well,
yes.
Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to see a good game on Saturday night, which stinks for my beloved. After losing two really critical games on the schedule to a really, really down Michigan team. Now, yes, it was at the Big House, but still, down Michigan team, that's a game a good team wins.
Yeah.
And you can't lose at home at homecoming to Northwestern. I'm sorry. Northwestern has kind of put some things together, but that was probably one of the most demoralizing losses that team could have suffered. Penn State's going to be bowl eligible. If you look at the rest of their schedule after this, their next four games, their next four opponents are Maryland, Indiana, Temple, and Illinois. They're going to get the 2 wins that they need out of those 4 games. Unfortunately, the problems that we've been talking about when we started the season with the offensive line, the inconsistency on offense, the corner play for Penn State is going to do it in for the 3rd week in a row. I hope Penn State can feed off of its crowd and James Franklin can fire these kids up and make it a game. But deep down inside, my gut says, man, if Ohio State is up 14, I think it's going to get ugly, and it's going to get ugly quickly. Okay. And that hurts to say that. But I really think the only way Penn State stays in this game is if it scores first and keeps it close within the first half. But if they're down big at the half, it's going to get ugly. So I think you're going to have a good night.
Okay. The variable here, I think, is Penn State's defense. It is easily the best defense that Ohio State has seen since the Virginia Tech game. And whether or not Coach Franklin can kind of take advantage of come up with some crazy fronts, that's a possibility. Although Ohio State's offensive line has matured a great deal in the 6 weeks that have passed since that loss at home, so that may or may not be something that even matters. That's a variable. The certainty is that Ohio State's defensive strength matches up exactly against Penn State's offensive weakness. Ohio State's defensive line, and by extension, it's front seven. I would draw your attention to the number 5 that will be on the field on Saturday night. That is Raekwon McMillan. He's a true freshman linebacker, and he is a beast, and he's done a lot, along with the rest of the linebacking quartet, to come along, to mature, and to really shore up the front four in front of them. Everyone expected those guys to be as good as they are, and then Penn State's offensive line. Coach Franklin, I read something today. Said that they, like Ohio State, Penn State had a bye week this past weekend. They've had a chance to work together and to gel. So it's possible, and frankly, I would expect an improved offensive line for Penn State. but they're facing what will be the best D line that they will see all year.
Yeah.
One of the better ones in the country. And you and I think we talked about this when our last show a couple weeks ago. Christian Hackenberg, who will be rested and who will be recovered, but he was just getting beaten to death.
Right, which it's a good thing that he recovered, because he's going to probably get beaten to death again this week. So
that's a difficult thing. It's a bigger challenge this time, and hopefully his line is in better shape than it was. Obviously, the fan in me is sort of cackling with glee. The guy who can occasionally make an objective football pick. I would have to think a couple touchdown wins. I'm not sure that Ohio State's going to get an extended streak of 50 points or 500 yards that they've been on a roll. I'm not sure that we're going to get to that. But I think a couple touchdown wins is going to be about right.
Here's what bothers me about Penn State or Ohio State before we move on, is that Ohio State lost that game and everybody just kind of wrote them off, right? And still nationally they're not getting the attention. But when you've got a team that's a one-loss team, right? And suddenly that game on November 8th against Michigan State is looking a heck of a lot more important than it did just a few weeks ago. You know. Yep. If Ohio State beats Michigan State, and we're getting down to that, the Big Ten is horrible conversation that we had earlier this season, I would argue that Barrett has looked fantastic. And, like you said, everything has kind of shored up the way that we expected it to. They should be a playoff contender. If they win the Big Ten, I would put them right in that mix, just like I would Michigan State.
That's a possibility, and that's something we can talk about at greater length as the time comes. But winning out and probably winning out convincingly, and that includes a tough road game in East Lansing. That would include a Big Ten title game against. That could be Nebraska, who Ohio State does not play in the regular season. That could be a rematch against Minnesota. And neither of those games are ones to be taken lightly. But yes, winning those games convincingly, you'd have to think it's a possibility.
It just bothers me that they're nationally ranked and nobody's talking about them. And it's kind of like they've been completely written off.
I am fine with that for right now.
You like the flying under the radar thing, right?
November, you want people to be talking about you in November. In October, it's fine. It's fine. We head to the mountains for our final official pick of the week. We're number 20 Southern Cal visits number 19 Utah. I don't know anything about the Pac-12 this year, outside of a few teams that we've talked about already. I know that USC is a 1-point favorite on the road here. Carla, what do you think?
The Pac-12 doesn't know about the Pac-12 this year. That's the problem, right? I mean, we've said this was going to happen with the SEC, and I've mentioned this a couple times. We said this was eventually going to happen with the SEC, and it's turned out the Pac-12 has decided to cannibalize themselves first. And it's actually, who would have thought at the beginning of the season, seriously, that there would be one division in the Pac-12 that would have 5 teams ranked, and one division that would have 1 team ranked. And it's the South that has the 5 teams ranked. Nobody would have predicted that at the beginning of the season.
Whole bunch of coaches in the state of Arizona that I don't like very much. But
well, them. Okay.
Doing good stuff.
Yeah. Both USC and Utah, it's tough to peg these two teams because A, they play so late at night, nobody sees the games. This game included. This game's what, like a 10:30 Eastern kick or something like that. Yes. USC it appears to be improving. Cody Kessler had a heck of a game last week. Now, true, it was against Colorado, so take that for what that's worth. But a 7-touchdown performance is nothing to scoff at offensively. So they've got some things going. But this is the schizophrenic USC team, which I guess is typical for Steve Sarkisian a little bit. But we've got a team that went to Arizona and beat a top 10 ranked Arizona team on the road. And this is the same team that just a couple weeks earlier lost on the road at Boston College.
Correct.
Like, which USC team is going to show up for this game? And it's anybody's guess. Yeah. Both USC and Utah, it's tough to peg these two teams because A, they play so late at night, nobody sees the games. B, and they lost to their other loss was to Arizona State, who at the time was unranked.
Right.
So at the time that looked like a bad loss. Now, maybe.
Now not so much.
Utah looks like they're a pretty decent team. Here's the problem: their losses to Washington State, and I'm not knocking that because, like I said, the Pac-12 is cannibalizing each other. That's totally fine. But the way they lost to Wazoo really kind of bothers me because they blew a 21-point lead.
Mm-hmm.
They were up 21-0 in the first quarter and lost that game by a point. And good teams don't do that.
Correct.
So flip a coin, right? This is a game that on paper, USC should probably lose this game because it's on the road, which means that USC will win. Because that's the way USC seems to be operating this year, is that the games that they're supposed to lose, they come out and they play hard and they win. And the games that they're supposed to win, they're kind of come out meh, i.e. Boston College, and either find themselves into a tight game or losing. So I'm going to lean USC in this one just because of that.
However, in a game that they should have, that you would expect them to win last week against Colorado, they came out and performed as they should. Yeah. I'm going to flip the switch here, and you grab my one USC stat, the Kessler and 7 touchdowns last week.
My one anybody knows about USC.
My one Utah stat is that they're averaging 5.5 sacks a game, something that is impressive. That speaks to a certain defensive strength. That I think in a similar fashion to LSU, something that you can perhaps parlay at home. Into a win, even when you're a 1-point underdog, which I'm not sure really counts for a whole lot. Anyway, that's the direction I'm headed. I think, regardless of how Southern Cal plays, I think perhaps a little home cooking for the Utes, and you've got a win over the dreaded Trojans. As we have done in so far this season, and we completely lost track of who is supposed to do this for who. I did give Carla the option of picking a conference. Our surprise pick for this week, West Virginia, number 22 West Virginia at Oklahoma State. The Mountaineers are 5-2, coming off a fairly significant win against Baylor last week. The Cowboys are also 5-2. I have no idea what they've done so far. I'm not going to read this little thing on my tablet here. Carla, real quick, who's got that one?
I got lucky because I actually know something about this game.
Wow.
I know, right? So here's the thing about both of these teams. They both have 2 losses. Both of their losses are to both teams' 2 losses come to opponents ranked in the top 10 at the time.
Okay.
So both of these teams' 2 losses are legitimate losses. Like they lost to good teams. So what does that mean on the field? Who the heck knows? I would say that I would lean West Virginia in this game for the sheer reason of the momentum that both teams are carrying into this game. West Virginia is coming off of a huge win against Baylor. Oklahoma State got wiped off the field by TCU. Because of that, I think West Virginia is going to play with more confidence in this game. I think West Virginia wins. But again, as conferences seem to be cannibalizing each other, it would not shock me if the Cowboys win this because of the exact opposite reasons. Because Oklahoma State's trying to prove, wait a second, we weren't a fluke. And there might be a letdown factor for West Virginia. So my logic there might be completely wrong. But I'm going to lean West Virginia in this one just based on that little information that I have.
Okay. Let's burn some more couches. Go Mountaineers. That's where I'm going.
Yeah, I heard the party was pretty epic in Morgantown last week.
It is a revival of the good old days in Morgantown, certainly. And our Ohio State's close friend Gordon Gee is trying to figure out how to manage the whole couch thing, and maybe he'll have another opportunity after this weekend. We will see. Carla, thank you once again for another outstanding show, and welcome back from your vacation.
Thank you. You too. And I'm really jealous you're going to be in Happy Valley on Saturday. Really jealous. So here's a good hearty we are.
OH.
I'm not answering. Sorry.
Guys, thank you for watching. I promise you, vacation's over. We will see you again next week. Thanks, Carla.
Thanks.
See you guys later.